Thanks, Steve. My name is Jack, and I'm an alcoholic. As you know, I was out in San Diego at the International Convention. Every 5 years, AA has an international convention. Next one is Minneapolis in the year 2000. So if you save $10 a month between now and the year 2000, you go to Minneapolis. And let me tell you, it's difficult to describe because it's something that you experience. First of all, we take over the town. Literally, we take over. You could not get a hotel room in San Diego for that weekend unless you went through General Services. They blocked out every hotel room in San Diego. There were 42,000 pre-registered alcoholics. There were 60,000 alcoholics plus finally registered. And when you walk around a town and all you see are alcoholics with badges on declaring their first name and the fact that they are an alcoholic, I don't know what it does to you, but it really sends me like 2 feet in the air. Just no pushing, no shoving, no how are you, where you from, what are you doing, just incredible. The Al-Anon had a red badge and the AAs had a blue badge. So I'm riding up in the elevator with my wife, and we're on the 28th floor, and there's somebody standing between her and the board where you punch the numbers in. And there's a guy from Australia to her left. And I push 28. And she says, "Did you push 28? I said, "Yeah, I pushed 28. "Well, did you push 28? I said, "Yeah, I pushed 28. And this Australian takes a look at her. He lifts up her jacket and sees the red badge, and he says, "I thought so, Al-Anon." And that's the way it was. Friday night was the big meeting was Friday night. 60,000 people in Jack Murphy Stadium. They did the wave like you've never seen the wave done before in your life. Everybody joined in the wave. They were dancing in the aisles, in and out. And they had what's known as a sobriety countdown, for those of you who are not familiar with it. Everybody stands up. Every 60,000 people stand up, and then they say, those with less than 1 year, sit down. Then they go 5-year increments. Less than 5 years, sit down, 10, 20, 30, 40. They get to 40, and I want to tell you, there's a lot of people standing up. A lot of people standing up. So then they do 41, 42. The last guy to sit down was near our section, as a matter of fact. They were all bowing to him. You know. I mean, that's the way it is. And he had 54 years. Incredible. And then they presented the flags of all the countries that were there. And that was very moving. And it was funny. The Irish flag got quite an ovation, incidentally. Then right after the Irish flag, we were expecting the Israeli flag. And the Israeli flag didn't show up until almost the next to the last. So we all said that the reason, and it was carried by a woman, and we all said that the reason the Israeli flag didn't show up was because she was having her hair done. And she didn't get there in time. But I think that was a little sexist on our part. I don't know. At any rate, they had 3 wonderful speakers, and I don't know if many of you who have ever left Yankee Stadium when there's 60,000 people. You know, it's almost a fist fight to get out of the parking lot, right? When you left Jack Murphy Stadium, everybody let you in. They like, it was a whole different atmosphere. You know, come ahead, come ahead. You know, nobody's cutting you off. They just let you to go in and move around. It was just. And then on the second night, first of all, there's meetings all day long. They start at 9 o'clock in the morning. There was a meeting I attended called Healing Through Laughter. And this guy, Leo Hurley from Brooklyn, he had to be the funniest guy I'd ever heard. I mean, he was incredible. He had everybody, 2,500 people in his room, and he had us all in hysterics. And all throughout the day, you know, you go to one meeting after another. And some meetings you're just crying in. I mean, it builds you up. I hear these stories. And then Saturday night, they had the Old Timers meeting. And in order to speak at the Old Timers meeting, you had to have 40 years. So I felt like a kid. It was a very nice feeling, I might add. But you had to have 40 years, and they picked you out of a hat. So not everybody with 40 years spoke. They picked 15 guys out of a hat, 15 men and women out of a hat. And they had this, the first gal up was a woman by the name of Ruth. And she was just darling. She said that she went to AA in the Bronx when she was, I don't know, she was 45 years sober or something like that. And she said that she was 49 days sober, and they passed out these principles at the meeting. And they were supposed to look at them and comment on them. And the principles turned out to be the traditions. She was around when they were developing the traditions. And she said, you know, 49 days sober, I could have changed one of them. And then she talked, and there were very few women around in those days. And she spoke about how she got a 12-step call from a woman, and she took the woman to Dr. Silkworth. And they could only speak for 5 minutes. There was 15 of them, and they could only speak for 5 minutes. So they had a big gong, and they gonged her off, and the crowd did not like that one bit. So for the rest of the meeting, every time there was a break, there was 40,000. There was only 40,000 at this meeting. There were 40,000 people going, Ruth, 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 Ruth. Couldn't get it back on. You know the way AA is. They're very, very strict. And then Sunday morning meeting was a spiritual meeting, and they had 3 wonderful, wonderful speakers. And one of the at the end of the meeting, I never filled up on balloons, but at the end of the meeting, they let go all these balloons. And I was just like, I can't describe it. It was emotional. It was unbelievable. And then everybody left, and we had just a wonderful, wonderful time. They got a few T-shirts and some souvenir books, and it was just wonderful. Attended the lawyers' meeting. Ray O'Keefe insulted, probably half the audience by the time he was finished, but that's Ray. That's the way he is. He was just wonderful speaking. And each meeting, they pick the best speakers in the country, is what they do. I heard Sister Maurice was there again. For those of you who heard her at the Unity Breakfast, she was just marvelous. And she was there, and heard her again. And there was a Native peoples meeting. It's interesting. There was a guy from the Navajo Nation who wanted to present the flag of the Navajo Nation, but they wouldn't let him do it. But I don't know, maybe that'll change. But at any rate, But he said he would be on the floor of the Jack Murphy Stadium with the flag, and sure enough, he was there, waving it back and forth, and he had all the native people around him. It was really moving, the whole thing. And, just people having fun. Whew, God. I guess just standing up there watching the people come in there. Everybody having fun. I mean, you just can't imagine 60,000 people having fun at a meeting. Just was something to experience. I miss Seattle. I've been to Denver and to New Orleans and Montreal, and they just seem to be getting better every day, every 5 years. They just get better. I know we have more people, a lot of people with babies, bringing them there, just a lot of young people. It was just marvelous. And a lot of people from my group and a lot of people from other groups in Westchester County. It was terrific. I recommend it to everybody. So, enough of that, I guess. We're on the ninth step today. And I just had to share that with you because it was so wonderful. I probably could talk about it for the balance of the hour, but that's not what we're here for. And of course, I stole a lot from the speakers out in San Diego. So you're gonna hear a lot of that, and I will give them no credit whatsoever. This is plagiarism without credit, And but when you really think about it, in the ninth step, may direct amends to those people we harmed, except when to do so would injure them or others. Life is relationships. It's a relationship with other people. That's what life is about. And this ninth step has to deal with relationships. And we know that if there's anything that destroys a relationship, it's self-centeredness. It just destroys it. You cannot be friendly with someone who's into themselves. Something, they don't care about other people. They're into themselves all the time. All they want to make sure is that they're taken care of. And that becomes very apparent to you very quickly when you begin a relationship or you're in a relationship. And I'm not talking about a man-woman relationship. I'm talking about any kind of relationship, If that person is a self-centered individual, that becomes very clear to you, and you really want out of that relationship. That relationship will not last long. And so when we make direct amends to other people, I think we learn a lot about relationships with other people. I think the best warning I can give anybody is don't rush into the ninth step. It is the ninth step because that's where the steps put it, and it's there for a reason. It comes after completing 8 steps. Dr. Bob, as you all probably know, went around the first night he was sober mending fences. And I don't know why he did that. I'm certainly not going to criticize Dr. Bob, but I don't know why he did it, but I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. I think you have to talk it over with your sponsor, before you go admitting things that may get you in a good deal of trouble, or perhaps, you will always get somebody who, well, I have this old girlfriend I really owe an amends to. You don't really owe an amends to, and she didn't want any part of you, And so forget about it, that's nonsense, and you know that. Well, I haven't heard from her. Oh, did you change your phone number? No. Well, if she wanted to hear from you, she probably would have called you. So that's not what this step is about. This step is about us getting better. And I think the perfect way to to do a ninth step is to first go to the person and tell that person how it is that you feel you have offended that person. When we say harm, we don't mean physical harm, obviously, emotional harm. You know, we do it with our tongues. I mean, we have tongues. Alcoholics are born with tongues that are unreal. And so how is it that this is how I believe I have offended you. I have done this, I have done that, I have done that. Now, would you please tell me how you feel I have offended you? All right? I don't know if anybody has the same experience that I have at home, but I get this a lot of times. Stop yelling. I'm not yelling. Stop yelling. You don't have to, I'm not raising my voice. She perceives it differently than I do. And I think people that we have offended perceive it differently than we do. So I think it's good to get a feedback from that person to see how they feel we have harmed them, how they feel we have offended them. And the last part of it is, what can I do to balance the account? What can I do to make it right? What do I have to do to make this amends? Now, that's not an easy thing to do, by no means, and I don't suggest that it is. And perhaps under certain circumstances it's inappropriate. But I think that's, this step is, how much freedom do you want? How much freedom do you want? Do you want to do this step right? Do you want to, make these amends and mend the fences and square the accounts? Or do you just want to say, I'm sorry? I think that's the difference. If you're painstaking about this phase of your development, certain facts happen, and I'll discuss them later. But I think you have to ask yourself, how much do I want this happiness? How much? Because we all have this problem of self-centeredness. We all have this problem of ego. And let me tell you something. When you go to somebody and you say, I believe I've offended you, how do you say I've offended you? And how can I square this account? That affects our ego. Oh, does it affect our ego? It maybe smashes it. And that's wonderful. That's really what we're about here, is smashing that ego. And because when we smash the ego, I have a friend, I talk about this guy in Canada all the time. But he says, alcoholics are funny. You can ask an alcoholic question, and their ego listens to it differently. He maintains that alcoholism is a hearing problem. It's not a drinking problem. I think I agree with that, We don't listen. We don't hear what people say to us. But he says, you ask an alcoholic, what are you doing? He answers, the hell business is it of yours? Who do you think you are asking me that question? What I'm doing is my business. It's none of your business. The trouble with you is you can't mind your own business. That's how an alcoholic with this ego hears that question. When that ego is smashed, that same question is, well, I'm trying to get in a car and go shopping, or I'm trying to do something, or I'm trying to build something, or I'm trying to put together something. So you hear it entirely different when that ego is smashed. And that's what we are about. I think, at least in my case, the people that I owed amends to were my family. And I had one daughter and 3 sons, and then we raised 2 other girls that came later after. I guess I was sober about 8 or 9 years, and we raised these 2 girls whose parents had died. And for one reason or another, my daughter had a falling out with these 2 girls that we raised. I think it may have been that they didn't suffer through my alcoholism. I suspect that was probably one of the contributing factors to it. But at any rate, I never really hit it off with my daughter. And, she's an AA member. She celebrated 20 years in March, so she's, sober woman. But I never really got it. And a couple of times I've been in her company when she's on the ninth step, and I'm listening. Well, she's going to talk about her amends to her father, I'm sure, right? Because that's my ego. She's got to talk about, because she put me through hell. I don't have to tell you, right? I mean, anybody who was raised a teenage girl will know exactly what I'm talking about. They lie, they manipulate, they do what? I don't have to go through it. At any rate, I figured she's going to talk about, what amends she made to her father, and I was left out of her ninth step every time she spoke about it. So I was talking to this guy one time, and I was talking about my daughter, and I said, I don't know, I just can't get close to her. And he said, have you ever done a ninth step with her? What a silly thing to say to me after I was sober 23 years at the time. And I said, I probably did when she was 15 or 16. He said, I think it's about time you did it again. I said, yeah, but I'm annoyed at her for this other thing with those other two girls. And he said, Jack, that is just a distraction. Don't let that distract you from doing a good ninth step with your daughter. And I said, all right. And so I did a ninth step with my daughter, and it was one of the great experiences of my life. She lived through the alcoholism. She lived through the fights. I don't know. My father was an alcoholic, I believe, we had some fights in the house and so forth, and they were kind of unpleasant, I guess, growing up. But I don't really have. He was just a wonderful man, and I certainly hold no grudge against him. But I don't know how it is to live in a household with somebody that's an active alcoholic the way I was. I don't know how it is to sit down at a dinner table and not know whether or not your father will join you, or when he joins you, what kind of shape he's going to be in, or will he say something nasty to your mother. I don't know how it is to live like that, but my daughter knows how it is to live like that, because she went through it. And I put her through a lot. I just wasn't there for her. And, she had her she had her form of retaliation. She would bring home these boys. If I had a gun, Hey, Daddy, I'd like you to meet so-and-so. You probably recognize him. He pumps gas for you. Oh, that's nice. Not that there's anything wrong with pumping gas, but, she would just... But anyway, I sat down with her, and we spent a good deal of time, and I said, this is how I think of it. And then she told me how I offended her. And there wasn't much I could do so far as squaring the account was, except give her a big hug and tell her I was going to be there. But I tell you, boy, we have been on a different level ever since that day. It's a different relationship. And it only took 23 years, so don't rush into this. But it's just, this program just keeps giving and giving and giving, and it's all laid out there for you, The ninth step was always there. God, they put that together in 1939. It was there. I just never took advantage of it, really. And what's the matter with doing it a couple of times to people? I don't know what's the matter with it. But the program is just ongoing. Just the benefits just keep coming and coming and coming. The book tells us that if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, certain things will happen. And they're referred to as the promises in the 9th step. And I prefer really to refer to them as facts. This is what will happen. They are facts. They have happened to me. Someone asked me, how do I know if I've done the 9th step properly? I said, well, are you amazed? And they said, no. Well, then you're not halfway through. Because our book says that you will be amazed before you're halfway through. So, I mean, that's, if you want to test yourself, you know, sit back. Am I amazed? No, then you're not halfway through. So, seems simple enough. It says we are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. A new freedom. How free do you want to be? That's really what you have to ask yourself. That's how painstaking you want to be on this step. Freedom from fear. God, isn't fear one of the things? I think pride, first of all, is the father of all defects. It all comes from pride. Pride develops fear. It develops a number of other things, jealousy, resentments, what have you. But freedom from fear. Freedom from, you know, getting up and talking in front of people. That's one of the great fears in our lives, isn't it? Speaking in front of a crowd. Freedom. Freedom from worrying what other people are going to say about what we do. Nobody here has any concern about that, do they? No, no. I mean, we don't care what other people say about us, do we? No. We are very concerned about that. But, you know, if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we're going to do the right thing. And the right thing is going to release you from that fear. The right thing is you're going to tell people, I don't care what you think. That's the right thing in my book, and that's what I'm going to do. And end of story. A new happiness. A new happiness? You know, I was happy when I was drunk. And beyond that, I wasn't very happy at all. There's a lot of things in my life that made me unhappy. But the only time I can remember being really happy, except maybe when I had some success in my life, but I didn't know happiness as such. I didn't go out and say, geez, what, I feel great today. I never did that. If I got drunk, I felt great, you know. The difference between my state was, I used to say $5 on a bar. I can't say that anymore. It's $20 on a bar. That's what happiness was to me. Put the money on a bar and order up and sit yourself in a chair and away you go. That may not you may not be able to identify with that if you're not into whiskey and mahogany, but that's the way I did it. Somebody at the conference, at the convention, was saying that they were scheduled to speak. This very funny guy said he was scheduled to speak at a nudist convention, but he was turned down because he found out that they were comparing instead of identifying. So I know that's awful, but I just had to share that with you. So, but we will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. I want to forget about the past. I really did. I want to forget about all those. I want to forget about crawling in the window at 7 o'clock in the morning. I want to really forget about that. I didn't really need that. I want to forget about tiptoeing into the bedroom at all hours of the night. I used to accuse my wife of leaving the drawers open, so I'd smash my knees on them. You know? I had bruises on my shins when I came into AA. It was unbelievable. I just kind of sneak in, wham! Oh my God! But but what I went through is one alcoholic talking to another, and I know that now. That's what this is all about. If I talk to the guy about climbing in a window at 4 o'clock in the morning and sneaking into your own house when you're paying the mortgage, he understands that. He understands that. He can identify with that. When I talk to him about I don't remember driving home. Yeah, you tell some non-alcoholic judge that, or some, and he'll put the jacket with the long sleeves on you. But you tell an alcoholic that, he knows exactly what you mean, because that's the way it was. I had a guy tell me, he says, yeah, you drove home last. I drove home? Yeah, I drove home. Then I got worried, because I didn't remember him driving home, but I couldn't deny it. And at 5 o'clock that night, he told me, I was only kidding you. You really drove home. I wanted to strangle him, because I was terrified all day. I don't know if anybody knows about that in here, that terror, that you don't know what you did, have no memory of it. I mean, you tell the average person that you had a blackout, and you perform things in a blackout, and you don't remember them, and they'll say, and you drank after that? Oh, yeah. You put more whiskey into you after you did that? Yeah. I mean, that's just turn and walk away. And you can't blame them. When you think about it, what the hell's the matter with us? Boy. So, our past is really our greatest asset in God's hands, it tells us. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. I don't know what you're talking about. Peace, serenity, that thing that Dr. Bob talked about in his, that 2 weeks ago I read, that perpetual quietness of heart that he spoke about, that I can't find. Yeah, here it is. I mean, when you talk about humility, that smashing of the ego, and what it really means, that perpetual quietness of heart is to have no trouble. I mean, those are facts for us. This is what happens to us if we're painstaking about this, if we really want it. It is never to be fretted or vexed, irritable or sore. Never sore. Huh? God. But that's what humility, that's what it is. To feel nothing done against me. Wow. To be at rest when nobody praises me. Doesn't sound like many alcoholics I know. But, that's what we're talking about with comprehend serenity and to know peace. No matter how far down the scale we've gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. I remember when I first came in, there was a guy up in Connecticut whom I really loved, and he was a great speaker. And he used to come to our meetings. And he would talk about his experiences in jail. And I never was in jail. But I tell you, this guy spoke about him. I said, gee, I wish I'd gone to jail. I could speak about something meaningful like that. He was great. He was just great. He ran a coffee shop in Danbury, and he would have AA guys lined up at the counter every morning. And he was just he could share things that just made you feel wonderful. And he'd gone down pretty far down the scale. And I watched him come back. He was great. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Someone was saying the other day that self-pity is focusing on the negative things in our life. And I think we're all guilty of that. That self-pity. Some of us love it. Some of us wallow in it. Someone once told me that self-pity was the last emotion that you feel before you go into the padded cell. I think that's probably true. We are so lucky in this program to have this program in our lives and be given to us. And you know, a buck in a basket, or it's $2 now, but a buck in a basket is all it takes. It's incredible that we would lose something like this and throw it away for alcohol or drugs. The best thing that when we help somebody else, I don't care whether it's an AA or whether it's outside or whether it's something to do with your job or it's at home, or when we help somebody else, we feel good. And when we're selfish, we feel lousy. It's that simple. It is just that simple. And I didn't know that until I came in here. I thought I was number one. Take care of number one. You know, make sure I'm taken care of, and the rest can go to hell. If they can, they got to go for themselves. That's not what it is. It's our job to be useful in life. And if you are painstaking about this, you do lose interest in selfish things. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Life was something to get through, I tell you, when I was drinking. I used to kid with a friend of mine that I wouldn't live to be 40. And I meant it. You know, the way I was going, boy, it was, I was driving drunk every night of the week. Every single night I should not have been driving. I could see that headline in the paper. Wouldn't be a headline, it'd be a small piece with my name in it. But I could see it every night. And I would pick up the paper and I'd read about people being scraped off a tree at 2 o'clock in the morning, or going head-on into some other car. And there were people in my group that were dying from picking up a drink. You know. So I knew that, and now it's different. I'm looking ahead to Minneapolis. That may seem a little strange, but I'm looking ahead to Minneapolis. And that's my outlook on life. Life is wonderful, wonderful. And you know, everyone's life has got its pains and problems, but I tell you, my outlook on life is just wonderful. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. Let me just discuss fear of people first. I think that was one of my real problems. I had done so much to so many people, I was afraid to look people in the eye. And I'm over that. You know, my slate is clean. I look anybody in the eye. I don't have anything to apologize for. I had a law school professor once told me, when you talk to a group of people, make believe you're all in their underwear. So you're all in your underwear as I'm talking to you now. And that loses the fear of people. But the fear of economic insecurity will leave us. A lot of people have a lot of problem with that. And I must tell you, I did. I don't have to, I must also confess that I don't have a lot of worry about economic insecurity for a number of reasons. But one of them is what I see happening in an AA group. I see people working this program, and I don't think it has anything to do with the amount of money you have. Economic insecurity is a state of mind. And if you trust in God and are working this program, that leaves you. That leaves you. Because you know what you can do. Sober person can do anything. Sober people don't starve to death. Sober people do very well. It's funny, last week I told you about that case that where I really screwed up this guy's defense, and he was sentenced to 15 years, and I finally got him out after a certain amount of time. And I was a pretty lousy lawyer at that point in my life, I believe. not for nothing, this September I will be inducted as a fellow in the American College of Trial Lawyers in San Antonio, Texas, which is, it's a big deal for me, but it just happened, All I did was not drink and go to meetings and do a good, they don't know that, They snooped around and they asked judges and other lawyers and things like that, and they invited me to be a member, and I'm pleased with that. But I didn't ask for it. I just did what I'm supposed to do. I just didn't drink and go to meetings and try to be useful, and that's what happens. This program is, it just keeps giving. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. That's real. That is just real. I can't tell you the decisions that you have to make sometimes in your life, and you say, I know it's right. I know it's a right decision. I just know it. It's in here. And, when you were drinking, you'd be 3 arguments against it, 4 arguments for it, and back and forth and back and forth. But now we're sober. God, that's an important quality, huh? It has nothing to do with the lack of whiskey. It's up here. We're sober, and there's an intuition that we have, and it feels right, and it's good, and it's a fact. We know that we make this decision. It's the right decision. I can't tell you the number of times I've made that decision, and it just worked out, and there was a lot at stake, but I just made the decision, and I knew it was okay. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Well, of course, each one of us knows that we could not stay sober by ourselves. Everybody in this room knows that. You can't stay sober by yourself. You got to have this program. You got to come to the meetings. And God is doing it. He's doing it. He does some things for us that obviously we could not do for ourselves, not only keeping us sober, but things happen in our lives, The word coincidence is gone from my lexicon. It's just gone. There are no coincidences anymore. It's God working anonymously in my life, and just happens. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always. Bill is, if you read the chapter 3, that rarely have we seen a person fail, Bill is always careful about using, those superlatives about, because, if he said nobody's failed to thoroughly follow our path, there'd be some drunk that'd say, I followed the path and I'm stewed. And so he uses the word rarely, But he doesn't say that here. He says they will always materialize if we work for them. Those facts that we have just gone through will always materialize if we work for them. You've got to work for them, though. How much do you want them? How much do you want to do this 9th step? How much do you want to deflate that ego? How much do you want to right that relationship with that person? How hard do you want to work? A lot of us owe money, I always get a kick out of it. Hey, Jack, I owe this guy $500. What do you think I should do? Oh, nothing. Tell him you're sorry. You got to pay back the money. Come on. What is this? You don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that. Pay back the money. All of it? All of it. Oh, God. I had a funny story on a 9th step. We had a girl in our group who, when she was working for this hotel up in Lake George, she stole a panther, a metal panther, beautiful thing. And she kept it in her house. And she's going through the program, and she's looking at this panther that belongs up in a hotel in Lake George. So happens, I'm going up to this. I've never been to the hotel in my life. I'm going up to the hotel, and I say, Tricia, I'm going to the hotel. You're going to that hotel? Yeah. Could you bring back the Panther for me? I said, sure. So I put the Panther in the back of the car, and we drive up to the hotel. I walk into the lobby. I got this Panther in my hand. Now, we're talking 25 years ago or something, she stole this Panther. She was a kid. She was working there in college. So I walk up to the guy behind the desk, and I said, listen, this is going to take a little explaining. And there were a couple of people who remembered the Panther from the hotel. Yeah, I remember the Panther. So she always tells that story in her ninth step, and I think it's cute. They said they were going to write it up, but I don't know. I never got anything on it. But, you know, we got to straighten it out. How hard do we want to work? That's when we're going to get these things happening to us, and not before. Now, I got to go with my questions here. When I can't make amends to someone because it would hurt them or others, what should I do? Well, obviously, we're not here to hurt people. You know, Bill talks about, in the fifth step, doing this with a minister or a clergyman, the fifth step. And I think, you know, we have to be a little careful in admitting things. We've just gone through a case in White Plains involving Paul Cox, who was a member of AA. But, if you analyze that case, it had nothing to do with AA, absolutely nothing to do with AA. They had a lot of us, have some things that perhaps we wouldn't want to advertise that we did while drinking, and if we're going to do something that hurts people, then we can't do that. We're not here to hurt, and we usually hurt the people that are around us and that we love. Should I keep the amends as brief as possible so they don't open old wounds? I don't believe that. I think you have to really work hard at it. I don't think it's I'm sorry, gee, I shouldn't have done that. I had a pigeon that I was sponsoring, and he had been in a bad accident in California, and I said, you got to go to California, because he ran away from the accident. I said, get your insurance company to take care of that. And it was a big deal for him, but he had to do it, and he did it. What's the difference between wherever and whenever? This is a pop quiz here. What is this? Wherever possible, I guess, huh? Yeah. Whenever possible, wherever possible. Mary Ann, I don't know why you asked that question. What's the difference between wherever and whenever? Well, I think it probably goes back to how do I keep from being confrontational? I think what a lot of us want to do is to tell the person that we're making amends to what they did to us. We don't want to forget that. It wasn't entirely my fault. That's not the purpose of this at all. We're not there to criticize anybody. We're there for us. This step is for me. This step is to help me deflate that ego. This step is for me so that I don't ever do this to anybody again. This step is for me so that I can be comfortable with other people, so that my relationships with other people in this planet will be different than it was before. Not to criticize whatever this guy did or this woman did. Not at all to be confrontational. What do I do when I can't make contact with someone? I need to get it off my chest. The book says you can write a letter, write a letter to the person. The person is dead. Do something perhaps to a survivor, for something for a survivor. But write a letter. How do I keep from wearing that hair shirt? I always thought that was in the third step, that you wore a hair shirt. I guess not. Well, that's, once the ninth step is done, it's done. The hair shirt is gone. I don't think you have to go on suffering with it. If the person does not accept the amendment, remember, that's not part of the step. It doesn't say that we made direct amends to such people we've harmed and hoping they'll become our friends again. It's just that we did it, and that's the end of it. And so once we've done it, it's over, and the step is over, and then you're amazed. so you would know that. You know, simple enough. My sponsor says to ask for help before each amendment and say thank you afterward. Right. Well, I think all of, you know, this is a spiritual program. This is not a program that has a spiritual side to it. This is a spiritual program, and of course, you know, to ask God for help before each amendment and to say thank you is important. It really, in anything that we do. I think I've said before, I believe that we are spiritual beings involved in a human experience. That's our life on this planet, is that we are spiritual beings. And this is a human experience that we're going through, so that, you know, we'll discuss that perhaps some more in steps 10, 11, and 12. This is winding down. I don't expect to have any more vacations between now and the 12th step, so we'll see you next week on the 10th step. Thank you.